We're about to dive into this absolutely incredible story from the book of Daniel. And what makes it so wild is that it's a rare first-person account, a public statement from one of the most powerful kings in history, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. And he wrote it after he went through this profound and frankly terrifying experience.
So, right out of the gate, the king himself is framing this whole thing. This isn't just some dusty old record. It's his personal testimony. He's writing this after the fact because he wants the entire world to know about the signs and wonders that completely flipped his world upside down.
All right, so let's picture this. Nebuchadnezzar tells us he was at peace, at rest in mine house and flourishing in my palace. I mean, he is at the absolute peak of his power. He's the ruler of this massive empire, and there's nobody and nothing that can challenge him. And that's when it all changes. And then bam, this sense of total peace is just shattered by a dream. And this isn't just, a weird dream. He says it made him afraid and the visions troubled him, like deep down. So his reaction is exactly what you'd expect from a king with unlimited resources. He summons every single expert in his kingdom to tell him what it all means.
So what does he do? He calls in the A-team, the magicians, the astrologers, the whole crew, the best and brightest minds Babylon has to offer. And nothing. They got nothing. Not a single one of them can figure out this vision, which of course just makes the king even more anxious. The most powerful minds in the most powerful kingdom are totally stumped.
So after everyone else has failed, finally, Daniel is brought in. Nebuchadnezzar lays out the whole troubling vision, hoping that Daniel, who he says has the spirit of the holy gods in him, can pull off what no one else could.
Okay, so here's the dream he lays out. He sees this huge, magnificent tree. It's so tall it can be seen from anywhere on earth, and it provides food and shelter for every living thing. But then this figure he calls a watcher comes down from heaven and issues this shocking command. Chop the tree down, but, and this is a huge but, leave the stump in the ground and bind it with iron and brass. And then it gets really weird. The decree says to let his heart be changed from a man's to a beast's for a period of 7 times.
Now, this term, watcher, let's pause on that for a second. This isn't just some random spirit. The text calls him a holy one from heaven. The term itself basically means that some divine authority is actively watching what's happening in human kingdoms. Someone up there is paying very close attention to Babylon.
Okay, and what about this 7 times thing? While the text doesn't spell out years, it definitely means a fixed, specific amount of time for this judgment. The ancient historian Josephus, for example, thought it meant 7 years. The key takeaway here is that this isn't forever. It has a set end date.
All right, now for the big reveal, the interpretation. As soon as Daniel hears the dream, the text says he was astonished for 1 hour. He was basically stunned into silence. He's so shaken by what it means that the king actually has to call him down and tell him to just spit it out. I mean, Daniel's reaction alone tells you everything you need to know. This is not going to be good news.
Yeah, before Daniel even gets into the nuts and bolts of it, you can feel his hesitation. He says, "My lord, let the dream apply to those who hate you." What a way to preface the bombshell he's about to drop on the most powerful man on earth.
So Daniel just lays it all out, no sugarcoating it. That great tree that provided for the whole world, that's you, O king. That decree to chop it down, that's a judgment from God, coming for you personally. But that stump left in the ground, well, that's your glimmer of hope. Your kingdom will be given back to you, eventually.
So here's the bottom line. Nebuchadnezzar is going to be driven from his throne, he's going to lose his mind and live like a wild animal. And the prophecy is crystal clear about why. It's all for one reason, a crash course in humility. It's going to last until he finally gets it, until he knows that his power doesn't come from himself, but that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men.
But, Daniel doesn't just drop this bomb and walk away. He actually offers the king an off-ramp, a way to possibly avoid this whole disaster. He tells him to repent, to swap out his sins for doing what's right, and to start showing mercy to the poor. It's like he's saying, look, you can choose to be humble or you can be humbled. Your call. So the big question is, does the king listen? Does he take Daniel's advice? Well, the story jumps ahead 12 months. A full year goes by after this incredibly serious warning, giving the king plenty of time to think about it and, change his ways. And this timeline, it really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? The king got a 12-month grace period to listen to Daniel's counsel, but he doesn't.
And one day, while he's strolling through his palace, admiring everything he's accomplished, he utters the exact words that are going to seal his fate.
I mean, can you just hear the pride dripping from that question? He's looking out over his spectacular capital city and taking all the credit. I built this by my power, for my honor. He's totally forgotten the warning that his power was a gift, not something he made himself.
And the comeback? It is immediate, and it is terrifying. The text says the words were still hanging in the air when a voice from heaven declared his judgment. No more delays, no more warnings. The time for that lesson had officially arrived.
And what happens next is just as literal and horrifying as the prophecy said it would be. The same hour, his sanity is gone. He's driven away from people to live out in the wild, eating grass like an ox, totally exposed to the weather until his hair looks like eagle's feathers and its nails like bird's claws. The most powerful king on the planet is brought down to the absolute lowest state imaginable.
But hey, remember that stump? The prophecy always promised he'd be restored. So after those appointed 7 times were over, the whole point of his suffering was accomplished. The king's mind and his kingdom were about to be given back to him.
And this is the turning point, right here. After 7 years of this madness, the very first thing the king does is look up. He lifts his eyes to heaven. In that one moment, just looking up and acknowledging a power greater than himself, his mind comes back to him. Just like that, the lesson was learned.
So, what was the big lesson in all this? Well, Nebuchadnezzar breaks it down for us himself, in his own words. He now knows for a fact that the Most High is the real ruler, that he gives power to whoever he wants, and, most importantly, that anyone who gets too proud, he is more than able to humble.
And the final result here is, well, it's pretty remarkable. He didn't just get his old job back. The text actually says that excellent majesty was added unto him. It's like once he finally learned humility, he was actually lifted up even higher than he was before. What a truly wild story, right? And it comes straight from the mouth of the king who actually lived through it. The absolute ruler of the world's greatest superpower was stripped of literally everything in a single moment, all because of pride. And it leaves us with this really big question to think about. If that can happen to him, what does this ancient lesson say about the nature of power, authority, and humility in our world today?